Maya Brooks thought she understood heartbreak until the morning. A billionaire walked into her cafe with a desperate proposal that would shatter everything she believed about love, money, and the dangerous line between helping someone and losing herself. What started as a simple favor for $500 became a web of lies so convincing that even she began to believe them, until a single photograph threatened to expose not just their fake marriage, but the terrifyingly real feelings neither of them saw coming. She had sworn never again to let a man's wealth control her choices, but Evan Hale wasn't offering her money. He was offering her a family, a future, and a love so genuine it scared her more than any lie ever could. When the truth finally came out, Maya would have to choose between the safety of her carefully guarded independence and the terrifying vulnerability of trusting someone with not just her heart, but her entire future. But some secrets have a way of becoming reality, and some pretend marriages become the most real thing two broken people have ever shared. What Maya didn't know was that the biggest betrayal wouldn't come from the man she was learning to love. It would come from the ex who refused to let her go. If you're ready to see how far someone will go for love, subscribe and tell me what city you're watching from. Maya Brooks had learned to read people through steam and foam. 3 years behind the counter at Bean and Harbour Cafe had taught her which customers needed extra patience, which ones wanted their coffee in silence, and which ones were just looking for someone to see them as human. The morning rush was in full swing when she noticed him. He sat at the corner table by the window, nursing a black coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Baseball cap pulled low, dark hoodie, shoulders hunched like he was trying to disappear. But Maya caught the way his eyes tracked every person who walked in, the careful way he positioned himself with his back to the wall. Someone who understood what it meant to feel exposed. "Maya, we need 2 lattes and a cappuccino," Lila called from the register, her cheerful voice cutting through the morning chaos. "Coming right up." Maya's hands moved with practiced ease, steaming milk to the perfect temperature while keeping one eye on the agitated customer at the counter. "This is ridiculous." The woman's voice rose above the coffee shop chatter. "I ordered a vanilla latte, not whatever this sugary mess is." Pete, the cafe owner, started to move from behind the pastry case, but Maya was already there. She set down her milk pitcher and approached with the kind of calm that came from years of practice. "I'm so sorry about that." Maya's voice was steady, warm. "Let me fix this for you right away. Would you prefer the vanilla syrup on the side so you can add exactly how much you like?" The woman's shoulders relaxed slightly. Yes, that would be good. Perfect. And this drink is on the house while I make your new one." Maya already had the cup in her hand, moving toward the espresso machine. Bad coffee can ruin a whole morning, and we definitely don't want that. By the time the woman left with her perfect vanilla latte and a smile, the cafe had settled back into its comfortable rhythm. Maya caught Pete's grateful nod before turning back to finish the waiting orders. It was another hour before the morning rush finally died down. Maya was wiping down the counter when she noticed the man in the corner was walking toward her. Up close, she could see kind brown eyes under the brim of his cap and the careful way he moved, like someone who'd learned to take up as little space as possible. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "Are you Maya?" She paused, cloth still in her hand. "Yes. Do we know each other?" "No, but Pete pointed you out, said you were the one who could help with." He glanced around the now quiet cafe. "Could we talk somewhere private? It's about a job opportunity." Maya studied his face. There was something genuine in his expression, something that reminded her of the customers who came in after bad news, looking for just a moment of normal kindness. "Pete," she called to the owner, who was restocking cups behind the espresso machine. "Can I take 5? Pete looked up, caught sight of the man, and nodded. "Sure thing. Use the back booth." The corner booth was tucked away from the main cafe area, surrounded by local artwork and the kind of mismatched furniture that made Bean and Harbour feel like someone's living room. Maya slid into one side while the man settled across from her, pulling off his cap to reveal dark hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it. "I'm Evan," he said. "Evan Hale." The name meant nothing to Maya, which seemed to relax him slightly. "I need help with something unusual." Evan's hands rested flat on the table. "My mother is having her birthday dinner tonight. Small family thing, but she's been worried about me. About the fact that I'm 30 and single, and apparently living like a hermit." Maya waited. There was more coming. "She keeps talking about how she wants to see me settled before she gets any older, how she worries I'll end up alone. Evan's voice was quiet, careful, and tonight, with the family all there, she's going to start her matchmaking campaign again. Or worse, invite Caleb's theories about why I'm still single. Caleb? My cousin. He has opinions. Evan's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. Look, I know this sounds crazy, but I need someone to pretend to be my wife for one evening, just for dinner, just to give my mother some peace on her birthday. Maya blinked. You want me to lie to your family? Not lie exactly. Evan leaned forward slightly. More like, let them believe something that makes them happy for one night, and then it's done. No follow-up, no complications. Why me? Maya asked. Why not someone you actually know? Because everyone I know would either want something in return or would make it complicated later. Evan's honesty was startling. Pete said you were trustworthy, that you handled difficult situations with grace. I saw how you dealt with that customer this morning. You made her feel heard without giving up your own dignity. Maya felt something twist in her chest. She recognized the careful way Evan spoke, the way he seemed to brace himself for rejection. It reminded her too much of herself 3 years ago, when she'd learned the hard way that some people saw kindness as weakness and generosity as opportunity. What would this involve exactly? Dinner at my mother's house. You'd introduce yourself as my wife. We'd eat, make conversation, and leave. The whole thing would be over by 10 o'clock. Evan reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. $500 for 4 hours of your time. Maya stared at the envelope. $500 would cover her portion of next month's rent with money left over. But the last time someone had offered her easy money for a simple favor, she'd ended up with a controlling boyfriend who thought paying for dinner meant he owned her choices. What's the catch? She asked. No catch, just, I need someone who won't turn this into something it isn't, someone who can be warm and friendly for my mother's sake, but won't expect this to continue after tonight. And you think I can do that? I watched you handle 6 different personality types in the last hour without losing your patience once. You made that angry woman feel heard while standing up for yourself. You treated everyone exactly the same, whether they were rude or polite. Evan's voice was steady. I need someone who can be genuine without being fake. Someone who understands boundaries. Maya looked at him for a long moment. There was something desperate under his calm exterior, something that made her think of herself at 19, when her ex Marcus had slowly convinced her that love meant never questioning his decisions. But Evan wasn't Marcus. Evan was asking, not demanding, offering payment, not expecting free labor, and most importantly, he was being clear about what this was and what it wasn't. I have rules, she said finally. Relief flickered across Evan's face. Of course, no physical affection without my explicit permission, no lies beyond the marriage thing itself. If anyone asks how we met or details about our relationship, we tell them the truth about everything except the legal status. Agreed. If I get uncomfortable and want to leave, we leave. No questions, no arguments. Absolutely. And this ends tonight. At midnight, like Cinderella, this whole thing is over. No contact afterward, no attempts to extend this arrangement. Evan nodded. That's exactly what I want too. Maya studied his face one more time. She'd learned to trust her instincts about people, and every instinct she had said Evan Hale was exactly what he appeared to be. Someone who needed help and was willing to pay fairly for it. What time is dinner? 7 o'clock. I could pick you up at 6. I'll meet you somewhere public. Text me the address. Maya stood up. Decision made. And Evan, if this goes wrong, if you try to change the rules or make this into something it isn't, I will walk out of your mother's house and never look back. I understand. Evan stood as well, pulling his cap back on. Thank you, Maya. Really, this means more than you know. After he left, Maya returned to the counter where Pete was pretending to organize already organized supplies. Everything okay? He asked. Yeah. Just a catering gig tonight. Private dinner party. Pete nodded. But Maya caught the way his eyes followed Evan's retreating figure through the window. She'd worked for Pete long enough to know he didn't send customers her way without a reason. Pete, how do you know that guy? Evan, he's been coming in here for about 6 months. Always polite, always tips well, never causes any trouble. Seems like a good kid who's dealing with some family pressure. Pete's weathered hands stilled on the coffee cups. You sure about this catering thing? I can handle it, Maya said, and meant it. She'd handled Marcus for 2 years before finally finding the strength to leave. She could handle one dinner party. The rest of her shift passed quickly. Maya served the lunch crowd with her usual efficiency, but her mind kept drifting to the evening ahead. She tried to picture Evan's family, his mother's birthday dinner, the role she'd have to play. By the time Lila took over for the afternoon shift, Maya had mentally rehearsed a dozen different conversations. She'd decided on her outfit, a simple navy dress that was nice enough for a family dinner, but not so fancy it would seem like she was trying too hard. She'd figured out how to style her hair and which shoes would be comfortable enough for a potentially long evening. What she hadn't figured out was why Evan Hale's quiet desperation had reminded her so much of herself. The walk home to the apartment she shared with her sister took Maya through the heart of their neighborhood, past Mrs. Patel's flower boxes, always perfectly tended, past the corner store where Mr. Kim had been teaching his teenage son how to run the register, past the small playground where she sometimes brought Maple, Mr. Alvarez's beagle, during her afternoon dog-walking shifts. Everything familiar, everything safe, everything she'd built for herself in the 3 years since she'd walked away from Marcus, with nothing but her savings account and a determination to never again let someone else control her choices. "Maya, you're home early." Zoe looked up from her laptop as Maya climbed the stairs to their third-floor walk-up. Her younger sister worked from home doing graphic design, which meant she noticed every variation in Maya's routine. "Picked up a catering gig tonight. Private dinner party." Maya dropped her purse by the door and headed for the kitchen. "Formal thing. I'll need to change." "Catering?" Zoe followed her into the small kitchen. "Since when do you cater?" "Since the rent's due next week, and they're paying well." Maya filled the kettle and set it on the stove. "It's just serving dinner and being friendly. Easy money." Zoe was quiet for a moment, and Maya could feel her sister's analytical mind working through the implications. "Maya, you don't know anything about catering. How hard can it be? Smile, serve food, clean up." Maya busied herself getting teacups from the cabinet. "It's one night." "Who's the client?" The question Maya had been dreading. She turned to face her sister, who was leaning against the doorframe with her arms crossed. At 24, Zoe was 2 years younger than Maya, but infinitely more suspicious of the world. She'd been the one to help Maya pack her things and leave Marcus. She'd been the one to suggest they get an apartment together. She'd been the one to teach Maya that it was okay to say no to people, even when they seemed to need her help. "Just a guy who needs help with his family dinner," Maya said carefully. "A guy. Pete recommended me. He's a regular at the cafe. And Pete thinks you should spend your evening serving dinner to some random guy's family because..." Maya sighed and turned off the burner. "Because the guy seems nice and he's paying $500 for 4 hours. The silence that followed was loaded with all the conversations they'd had about Maya's tendency to help people, even when it wasn't necessarily in her best interest. "Maya," Zoe said finally, "promise me you'll text me his address and check in every hour." "It's not like that, Zoe. It's just dinner with his family. His mother's birthday." "Then texting me his address shouldn't be a problem." Maya looked at her sister's worried face and felt a familiar mixture of gratitude and frustration. Zoe's protectiveness had helped Maya rebuild her confidence, but sometimes it felt like trading one kind of control for another. "I'll text you the address," she said, "but I can handle this." "I know you can. But you don't have to handle everything alone." After Zoe returned to her laptop, Maya climbed the narrow stairs to her bedroom and stood in front of her small closet. The navy dress hung next to her work uniforms and the casual clothes that made up her carefully curated wardrobe. Everything in her closet had been chosen for comfort and practicality, nothing flashy or attention-grabbing. The navy dress was different. She'd bought it for her cousin's wedding 2 years ago and had worn it exactly once. It was simple but elegant, with a modest neckline and sleeves that hit just below her elbows. The kind of dress that said, "I belong here," without saying, "Look at me," perfect for playing someone's wife for an evening. Maya laid the dress on her bed and sat down beside it, finally allowing herself to really think about what she'd agreed to do. In 6 hours, she'd be sitting at a stranger's family dinner, pretending to be married to a man she'd known for all of 20 minutes. It should have felt wrong, dishonest, but instead, it felt like the kind of small kindness she'd want someone to show her own mother, if her mother was still alive to worry about Maya's love life. Her phone buzzed with a text from Evan. "Dinner is at my mother's house, 47 Maple Street in Brookline. I'll meet you at the corner of Maple and Elm at 6:45. Thank you again." Maya typed back, See you then. Then she forwarded the address to Zoe with a message. Dinner address. Home by 10. Zoe's response was immediate. 3 skeptical face emojis. Maya smiled despite herself. Her sister's protective instincts were annoying, but they came from love. And after Marcus, Maya had learned to appreciate people who cared enough to worry. She spent the rest of the afternoon getting ready with the same careful attention she brought to everything else. A light layer of makeup that enhanced her features without looking overdone. Hair pulled back in a low bun that was elegant but not overly styled. The navy dress with simple flats and the small gold earrings that had been her mother's. By 6:30, she was standing at the corner of Maple and Elm, checking her phone one more time before dropping it into her small purse. The evening air was cool but not cold, perfect for a walk to dinner. Evan appeared exactly at 6:45, walking up Elm Street with the same careful posture she'd noticed in the cafe. He'd traded his hoodie and cap for a button-down shirt and dark jeans, but he still moved like someone who preferred not to be noticed. Maya. His relief was visible as he approached. Thank you for doing this. We had a deal, she said simply. Are you ready? As ready as I can be. Evan gestured toward Maple Street. My mother's house is just 2 blocks up. Before we get there, though, there are a few things you should know. They walked slowly, and Maya listened as Evan painted a picture of his family. His mother, Ruth, 56 and widowed for 3 years, who cooked elaborate meals when she was anxious and had been cooking for 2 days straight. His cousin, Caleb, who had opinions about everything, and particularly strong opinions about why successful men stayed single. Potentially Sienna, Evan's ex-girlfriend, though Evan hoped Ruth hadn't invited her. What happened with Sienna? Maya asked. She wanted different things than I did. More public things. She liked being seen at the right places with the right people. Evan's voice was careful, neutral. It ended about 6 months ago, but she and my mother stayed in touch. Maya nodded. She understood about wanting different things. Marcus had wanted her to want what he wanted. The difference was that Evan seemed to accept that wanting different things meant the relationship ended, not that one person had to change. How long are we supposed to have been married? She asked. We can keep it vague. A few months? We wanted to keep it private, low-key. That's why my family is just hearing about it now. And how did we meet? The truth. At the cafe. You were working. I was a customer. We started talking. Maya appreciated his commitment to keeping the lies minimal. It would make the evening easier and the morning after cleaner. They stopped in front of a tidy 2-story house with a small front garden and warm light spilling from the windows. Maya could see figures moving around inside, the suggestion of a dinner party in preparation. Last chance to change your mind, Evan said quietly. Maya looked at his face, saw the tension he was trying to hide, and thought about her own mother's last birthday before the cancer took her. How she'd worried about Maya being alone, how she'd made Maya promise to find someone who would see her value. I'm ready, she said. Evan knocked, and footsteps approached the door. Here goes nothing, he murmured, just as the door swung open. Evan, honey, come in, come in. The woman in the doorway was petite with silver-streaked brown hair and Evan's same kind eyes. She wore an apron over a blue dress and had flour on her hands. And this must be Maya, Evan said smoothly. Mom, I'd like you to meet my wife, Maya. Maya, this is my mother, Ruth. Maya stepped forward with what she hoped was the right mixture of nervousness and warmth. Mrs. Hale, it's so wonderful to meet you. Evan has told me so much about you. Ruth's face went through several expressions: surprise, delight, and something that might have been relief before settling on pure joy. My wife, she repeated, looking between them. Evan, why didn't you tell me? How long have you? When did you? Oh my goodness. Come in, both of you. Dinner's almost ready and I have so many questions. As they stepped into the warmth of Ruth's house, Maya caught Evan's eye. He looked grateful and terrified in equal measure. The evening had officially begun. Ruth Hale's dining room was exactly what Maya had expected from a woman who cooked when she was anxious. The table was set with what was obviously the good china, complete with cloth napkins and more silverware than Maya had seen outside of a restaurant. Candles flickered in crystal holders, and the scent of roasting chicken filled the air. Caleb's already here, Ruth said, leading them through a living room filled with family photos. He's in the kitchen pretending to help. Maya, can I get you something to drink? Wine? Water? Water would be perfect, thank you. Maya caught a glimpse of herself in Ruth's hallway mirror and was satisfied with what she saw. The navy dress looked appropriate. Her posture was relaxed, and if you didn't know better, you might actually believe she belonged here. The kitchen was clearly the heart of Ruth's home. Copper pots hung from hooks above a well-used stove, and every counter was covered with the evidence of serious cooking. A tall man with dark hair and an expensive watch was leaning against the island, holding a beer and watching Ruth fuss over a pan of roasted vegetables. "Caleb," Ruth said, "come, meet Evan's wife." The word wife still sounded strange to Maya's ears, but she was getting used to it. Caleb looked up with undisguised curiosity and something else Maya couldn't quite identify. "Wife?" He straightened, setting down his beer. "Evan, you didn't mention you'd gotten married." "We wanted to keep it private," Evan said easily. "Caleb, this is Maya. Maya, my cousin Caleb." Maya stepped forward with a warm smile. "It's nice to meet you, Caleb. Evans told me you work in finance. Investment banking." Caleb shook her hand, his grip a little too firm and held a little too long. "And what do you do, Maya?" "I'm a barista at Bean and Harbour Cafe in the city. That's where we met." She saw something flicker across Caleb's face, surprise maybe, or calculation. But before he could respond, Ruth was back with a glass of ice water and an eager expression. "I want to hear everything," Ruth said, settling onto one of the kitchen stools. "How long have you been married? When did you know? Was it romantic?" Maya felt Evan tense beside her and realized this was the moment that would make or break their entire evening. Ruth's questions were genuine, motherly, and completely impossible to answer with elaborate lies, which meant Maya had to find a way to tell the truth that wasn't the whole truth. "Well," Maya said, accepting the water gratefully, "we met about 6 months ago when Evan started coming into the cafe. He was always very polite, always tipped well, but it took him forever to actually start a conversation." This was true. According to Pete, Evan had been a regular for months before today. "I was nervous," Evan admitted, which Maya suspected was also true. "He finally asked me about the coffee," Maya continued, finding her rhythm. "Not to ask me out, just to ask about the coffee, which beans we used, how we prepared them. It was sweet. Most guys try pickup lines, but Evan actually wanted to know about the work I cared about." Ruth's expression was softening, and even Caleb looked interested despite himself. "When did you know he was special?" Ruth asked. Maya looked at Evan, who was watching her with something like amazement, and realized she didn't have to lie about this part either. "The morning a customer was really angry about her order. She was having a bad day and taking it out on everyone around her. Evan was sitting in the corner, just watching. After I helped her and she left happy, he told me he'd never seen someone de-escalate a situation like that. He said I made her feel heard without giving up my own dignity." Maya's voice was quiet, honest. "Most people see customer service as something you have to tolerate. Evan saw it as something I chose to be good at." The kitchen was quiet for a moment. Ruth was beaming, and Maya realized she'd somehow managed to describe exactly the kind of man Ruth would want for her son. Someone who noticed kindness, who valued Maya's work, who saw her strength instead of just her willingness to serve. "That's beautiful," Ruth said softly. "When did you propose?" Caleb asked, and Maya heard the edge in his voice. Evan didn't miss a beat. "I didn't, actually. Maya brought it up first." Maya blinked, but Evan continued smoothly. "We were talking about the future, about what we both wanted. Maya said she thought marriage should be a conversation, not a surprise. So we talked about it, decided we were both ready, went to City Hall the next week." "City Hall?" Ruth looked a little disappointed. "We wanted something simple," Maya said quickly. "Just us, no fuss. We figured we could always have a party later if we wanted to celebrate with family," which was not quite a lie, since they weren't actually having a party at all. "I love that," Ruth said, recovering from her disappointment. "Sometimes the most meaningful things are the simplest ones." A timer went off, and Ruth bustled back to the stove to check her chicken. Maya caught Evan's eye and saw her own relief reflected there. They'd managed the first hurdle. "Maya," Caleb said casually, "what did you study in college?" The question was clearly designed to probe, to see if Maya was suitable for someone in Evan's social circle. Maya had encountered this kind of subtle interrogation before, the assumption that her job as a barista meant she wasn't educated or ambitious. "I have a degree in social work from Boston University," Maya said calmly. "I worked for a family services non-profit for a year after graduation, but the burnout rate was pretty high. I decided I'd rather help people in smaller ways, and still have energy left over for my own life. All true. Maya had loved social work until the endless caseloads and bureaucratic frustrations had left her exhausted and cynical. Working at the cafe was simpler, but it still let her take care of people. "That's interesting," Caleb said, though his tone suggested it wasn't particularly impressive. "I think it's admirable," Ruth said firmly. "It takes strength to know when to change course, and anyone who's watched Maya work can see she's wonderful with people." Maya felt a flush of warmth at Ruth's defense. Evan's mother was clearly the kind of person who valued character over credentials, kindness over status. Maya could see why Evan wanted to protect her from worry. "Dinner's ready," Ruth announced. "Maya, would you mind helping me carry things to the dining room?" In the dining room, Maya found herself seated next to Evan and across from Caleb. Ruth had clearly pulled out all the stops: roasted chicken with herbs, vegetables that looked like they belonged in a magazine, fresh bread that was still warm from the oven. "This is incredible, Mrs. Hale," Maya said as Ruth served the chicken. "You must have been cooking all day." "Oh, call me Ruth, please. And yes, I may have gone a little overboard, but it's not every day I get to meet my daughter-in-law." The word daughter-in-law hit Maya unexpectedly. She'd been prepared for wife and married, but somehow daughter-in-law felt more personal, more real. She glanced at Evan and saw that he'd noticed her reaction. "Tell me about your family, Maya," Ruth continued as she settled into her chair. "Are your parents in Boston?" Maya's hand tightened slightly on her fork. "My mother passed away 4 years ago. Cancer. My father. We're not really in touch anymore." "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." Ruth's sympathy was immediate and genuine. "Losing a parent is so hard, especially your mother." "Thank you. She would have loved meeting you, I think. She was always worried about me being too independent for my own good." "Were you close?" Maya nodded. "Very close. She raised me and my sister mostly on her own, taught us that we could take care of ourselves, but that didn't mean we had to do everything alone." She realized as she spoke that she was describing exactly why she'd agreed to help Evan tonight. Her mother had always said that sometimes taking care of yourself meant taking care of the people around you too. "That's wise advice," Ruth said. "And your sister, Zoe. She's 2 years younger, works as a graphic designer. We live together." Maya smiled, thinking of Zoe's 3 skeptical emojis. "She's very protective. She made me promise to text her your address tonight." "Good for her," Ruth said approvingly. "Sisters should look out for each other." Caleb had been unusually quiet during this exchange, but Maya could feel him watching, evaluating. When there was a pause in the conversation, he leaned forward slightly. "So, Evan, this is pretty sudden. 6 months ago you were with Sienna, and now you're married to someone we've never heard of." Maya felt the atmosphere in the room shift. Ruth's fork paused halfway to her mouth, and Evan went very still beside her. "People change," Evan said carefully. "What I wanted with Sienna wasn't what I wanted for my life." "But married? Without telling any of us?" Caleb's tone was casual, but Maya recognized the probing underneath. "That seems like a pretty big decision to make without family input." "With respect, Caleb," Maya said quietly. "Evan's an adult. We're both adults. We don't need anyone's permission to make decisions about our own lives." "Of course not," Caleb said smoothly. "I'm just surprised. Evan's always been very cautious about commitments." Maya looked at Evan and saw something flash across his face: hurt, maybe, or old frustration. She made a decision. "I think that's what I love most about him," she said, her voice warm. "Evan doesn't make promises lightly. When he commits to something, you know he means it. That's not caution, that's integrity." The silence that followed was charged with something Maya couldn't quite identify. Ruth was looking at her with obvious approval. Caleb seemed taken aback by her directness. And Evan was looking at her like she'd just said something that mattered to him in a way she hadn't expected. "Exactly," Ruth said firmly. "Some people could learn from that kind of thoughtfulness." The subtle rebuke to Caleb was unmistakable, and Maya saw him sit back slightly, apparently deciding to retreat from whatever point he'd been trying to make. The conversation moved on to safer topics: Ruth's garden, Maya's work at the cafe, Evan's mysterious job that he described only as technology consulting. Maya found herself relaxing despite the undercurrents of family tension. Ruth was genuinely curious about her life, asking about her dog-walking clients and her favorite books with the same interest she might show in discussing someone's career in law or medicine. "Maya," Ruth said as she served a dessert that looked professionally made. "Do you cook?" "I'm learning," Maya admitted. My mother was an excellent cook, but she died before she could teach me all her recipes. I've been trying to recreate some of her dishes from memory. Oh, that must be so hard. Getting the flavors right when you can only remember how they tasted. It is. Sometimes I get close, but it's never quite the same. Ruth was quiet for a moment, then got up from the table. Wait here, she said, disappearing into the kitchen. She returned with a small notebook, its pages soft with use and its margins filled with handwritten notes. This was my mother's recipe book, Ruth said, setting it beside Maya's plate. Every recipe has notes about what works and what doesn't. Little tricks she learned over the years. I've been meaning to copy them down properly, but... She shrugged. Maybe you'd like to borrow it? See if any of the techniques help with your mother's recipes? Maya stared at the notebook, overwhelmed by the generosity of the gesture. This was clearly precious to Ruth, a connection to her own mother, filled with family history and personal touches, and she was offering to loan it to someone she'd known for 2 hours. I couldn't, Maya said softly. This is too special. That's exactly why I want you to have it for a while, Ruth said. Special things are meant to be used, not just preserved, and if it helps you connect with your mother's memory. She reached over and squeezed Maya's hand. I think our mothers would approve of us helping each other. Maya felt her eyes prick with unexpected tears. Ruth's kindness was so genuine, so unguarded, that it reminded Maya powerfully of her own mother's warmth. Thank you, she managed. I promise I'll take good care of it. I know you will. The evening wound down gradually after that. Caleb made polite conversation but seemed to have lost his earlier edge. Ruth showed Maya family photos, including several of a younger Evan, who looked serious even as a child. Evan helped clear the table and load the dishwasher, moving around his mother's kitchen with obvious familiarity. By 9 o'clock, Maya could tell that Ruth was getting tired, though she was trying to hide it behind continued questions about Maya's work and interests. We should probably head home, Evan said gently. Early day tomorrow, of course. Ruth walked them to the front door, where she hugged Evan first, and then, to Maya's surprise, hugged her as well. It was so wonderful to meet you, Maya. I hope we'll see much more of each other. I hope so too, Maya said, and realized she meant it. Standing on Ruth's front steps, watching Evan say goodbye to his mother, Maya felt an unexpected pang of loss. For 4 hours, she'd been part of a family. She'd had a mother-in-law who thought she was wonderful, a husband who looked at her with gratitude and something deeper, a place at a table where she belonged. Tomorrow, she'd go back to being Maya Brooks, single barista, with no family except Zoe. But tonight, for just a few hours, she'd been Maya Hale, beloved daughter-in-law, cherished wife. And that felt dangerously close to something she could want for real. The walk back to the corner where they'd met was quiet. Maya carried Ruth's recipe book carefully in her hands, still overwhelmed by the gift. Evan walked beside her with his hands in his pockets, his expression thoughtful. Thank you, he said finally. I know this was strange, but you made it feel real, natural. Your mother is lovely, Maya said. She really loves you. I know. That's what made tonight so important. Evan stopped walking and turned to face her. What you said to Caleb about integrity, that meant a lot. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. I was just trying to deflect his questions. No, you weren't. You were defending me. You didn't have to do that. They stood under a streetlight, the evening air cool around them, but the conversation warm with something Maya couldn't quite name. The recipe book, Evan continued. That's not something she'd share with just anyone. She really likes you. I like her too. She reminds me of my mother in some ways. Good ways, I hope. The best ways. Maya adjusted her hold on the precious notebook. Evan, what happened with Sienna? Really? Evan was quiet for so long that Maya thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful but honest. Sienna wanted to be seen. She liked being photographed at charity events, having our relationship mentioned in society pages. She thought privacy was the same thing as shame. He paused. I've learned to value quiet things, personal things. She thought that made me boring. That doesn't make you boring, Maya said. That makes you discerning. Evan looked at her with the same expression he'd worn at dinner when she'd defended his character to Caleb, like she'd said something that mattered to him. This is where we say goodbye, Maya said, recognizing the corner where they'd met what felt like much longer than 4 hours ago. Right, our deal. Evan reached into his jacket and pulled out the envelope he'd shown her at the cafe. Thank you again, Maya, for everything. Maya took the envelope, but instead of relief at the completion of their arrangement, she felt something that might have been disappointment. Will you be okay? With your family, I mean. After tonight? Tonight bought me some time. My mother will stop worrying for a while. Stop trying to set me up with her friends' daughters. Caleb will probably have questions, but I can handle Caleb. And when she asks about me again? When she wants to see us together? Evan's expression grew sad. I'll figure something out. Maybe tell her we're taking things slow, keeping our marriage private. Eventually. He shrugged. Eventually I'll have to tell her the truth, that it didn't work out. Maya felt a sharp pang at the thought of Ruth learning that Maya had been lying to her all evening. Ruth, who'd shared her mother's recipes and welcomed Maya like a daughter. She's going to be hurt, Maya said quietly. I know, but she'll understand. She's stronger than people think. Maya nodded, but something about the plan felt wrong. Ruth wasn't just going to lose a daughter-in-law she'd never really had. She was going to lose the hope that Evan had found someone who saw his value, someone who would take care of him the way she wanted him to be taken care of. Good night, Evan, Maya said, finally. Good night, Maya. Maya walked the 3 blocks to her apartment with Ruth's recipe book clutched against her chest and $500 in her purse. The evening had gone exactly as planned. She'd played her part, earned her money, and extracted herself cleanly from a complicated situation. So why did she feel like she was walking away from something important instead of toward the safety of her own life? Mrs. Patel was checking her mailbox in the building lobby when Maya arrived. Maya, dear, don't you look lovely? Was there a special occasion tonight? Just a nice dinner, Maya said, trying to summon her usual warmth for her elderly neighbor. With anyone special? Mrs. Patel's eyes twinkled with curiosity. Maya thought of Evan's quiet gratitude, Ruth's generous welcome, the way it had felt to defend someone's character and mean it. Maybe, she said softly. I'm not sure yet. Upstairs, Zoe was waiting with a cup of tea and an expectant expression. How was the catering gig? She asked as Maya hung up her coat. Fine. Good. The family was nice. Maya set Ruth's recipe book carefully on the kitchen counter. They paid me well. That's it? That's all I get? Maya looked at her sister's concerned face and realized she didn't have words yet for what the evening had been. It hadn't been catering or even acting, exactly. It had been something closer to stepping into a life that might have been hers, if circumstances had been different. I'm tired, Zoe. Can we talk about it tomorrow? Zoe studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Sure. But Maya, you look different. Good different, but different. In her bedroom, Maya hung up the navy dress and changed into comfortable pajamas. She sat on her bed with Ruth's recipe book in her lap, carefully turning the pages filled with another woman's handwriting, another mother's love. On the last page, Ruth's mother had written, "The secret ingredient is always caring about who you're feeding." Maya closed the book and set it on her nightstand, next to the envelope with $500 she'd earned for 4 hours of pretending to be someone's wife. But as she turned off the light and settled into bed, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that tonight hadn't been about pretending at all. Tonight had been about remembering what it felt like to be part of something larger than herself. And tomorrow, she'd have to decide if that feeling was worth pursuing or if it was safer to let it fade away like a beautiful dream that had served its purpose. Outside her window, the city hummed with its usual evening sounds, but for the first time in 3 years, Maya Brooks fell asleep thinking about what it might be like to be loved by someone who saw her strength as something to cherish instead of something to control. And in a brownstone across the city, Evan Hale sat in his living room, thinking about a woman who had defended his character to his family and made his mother smile like she hadn't smiled since his father's funeral. Both of them knew their agreement was over. Neither of them was quite ready to let it go. Maya was pulling her second espresso shot of the morning when she saw him through the cafe window. Evan Hale, walking down the sidewalk with the same careful posture she remembered from yesterday. But something was different. His steps were more purposeful, less like someone trying to disappear. It was 7:30 on a Friday morning, and the early rush hadn't hit yet. Just a few regulars grabbing their usual orders before work. Maya had arrived at 6 to open, grateful for the familiar routine of grinding beans and arranging pastries after a night of restless sleep. She'd dreamed about Ruth's dining room, about the way it felt to have someone's mother look at her with pride. She'd woken up twice, reaching for her phone, wanting to text someone about how the evening had gone, before remembering that the one person who would understand was exactly the person she was supposed to forget. Maya, Lila called from behind the register. Your friend from yesterday is back. Maya's hands stilled on the espresso machine. Through the window, she could see Evan approaching the door, but instead of his usual baseball cap and hoodie, he wore a simple button-down shirt and looked like someone who'd made a decision. He's not exactly my friend, Maya said quietly. Well, whatever he is, he's heading this way, and he looks nervous. The door chimed as Evan entered. Maya finished the espresso shot she was pulling and handed it to its waiting customer before allowing herself to look directly at him. When she did, she was struck again by how kind his eyes were, even when he was clearly anxious about something. Good morning, Maya. His voice was quieter than the casual greeting warranted. Good morning, Evan. Maya kept her tone professionally friendly, aware that Lila was listening from 2 feet away. What can I get you? Actually, I was hoping we could talk, if you have a few minutes. Maya glanced around the cafe. Pete was in the back office doing paperwork, and Lila could handle the light morning crowd alone. But talking to Evan felt dangerous somehow, like opening a door she'd spent all night convincing herself to keep closed. I'm working, she said carefully. I know. There's something I need to ask you. Something I should have asked last night. Lila appeared at Maya's elbow with obvious curiosity. Maya, I can cover for a few minutes if you need to talk to your customer. He's not, Maya started, then stopped. What was Evan, exactly? A client whose job was finished? A stranger who'd paid her to lie to his family? Someone who'd looked at her like she mattered when she'd defended his character to his cousin? 5 minutes, Maya said finally. Back booth. The corner booth felt different in the morning light. Less intimate, more exposed. Maya slid into the same seat she'd occupied yesterday, but instead of feeling like she was helping someone in need, she felt like she was about to be asked for something she couldn't give. Evan sat across from her, his hands flat on the table the same way they'd been yesterday, but his expression was more open now, less guarded. I couldn't stop thinking about last night, he said without preamble. Evan, not the arrangement part, the real part. He leaned forward slightly. The way you talked to my mother, the way you handled Caleb, the way you made everything feel genuine. Maya felt her heart start to beat faster. That was the job. You asked me to be convincing. No, that's just it. You weren't being convincing. You were being yourself. And yourself was. He paused, searching for the right words. Maya, I haven't felt that comfortable with my own family in years. You made me remember what it was like to have someone in my corner. Your mother loves you, Maya said carefully. You don't need someone else in your corner. Maybe not. But I want someone there. Evan's voice was steady, honest. I want you there. The words hung between them like a challenge. Maya felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came when someone wanted something from her that felt too big, too complicated. What are you asking me, Evan? I'm asking if you'd be willing to go on a real date with me. Not pretending to be married, not helping me fool my family. Just dinner, or coffee, or whatever people do when they want to get to know each other. Maya stared at him. Of all the things she'd expected him to say, this wasn't one of them. In her experience, men who needed women to solve their problems weren't usually interested in getting to know those women as people. Why? She asked. Because last night, when you defended me to Caleb, you weren't defending a stranger you were helping. You were defending someone you decided was worth defending. And when my mother gave you her recipe book, you didn't see it as payment or a bonus. You saw it as the gift it was. So I want to know the woman who thinks integrity matters more than image. I want to know the person who can de-escalate an angry customer and make my anxious mother feel heard in the same conversation. Evan's voice dropped. I want to know Maya Brooks, not the version of Maya who was helping me solve a problem. Maya felt something flutter in her chest, something that felt dangerously like hope. But hope was a luxury she'd learned to be suspicious of. I don't date clients, she said. I'm not a client anymore. Our arrangement ended at midnight. Remember? I don't date rich men. The words came out harsher than Maya had intended, but she didn't take them back. Evan blinked. Because I'm rich, or because rich men have treated you badly? The question was so direct, so free of defensiveness, that Maya found herself answering honestly. Because rich men usually want something specific from women like me, and when they're done getting it, they move on to someone more appropriate. Women like you? Working-class women. Women who serve them coffee or clean their offices or smile at them when they're having a bad day. Maya kept her voice level. I'm not bitter about it. I just know what I am and what I'm not. Evan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. Maya, what you are is someone who handles difficult people with grace, someone who values other people's feelings without sacrificing your own dignity, someone who can walk into a stranger's family dinner and make everyone feel more like themselves. That's not what you're not, Evan continued, is someone who should have to convince anyone of your worth. And if someone can't see it, that says something about them, not about you. Maya felt her carefully constructed defenses waver. Evan wasn't arguing with her assessment of the power dynamics between them. He was arguing with her assessment of herself. You don't know me, she said quietly. No, I don't. That's why I want to take you to dinner. This is a bad idea. Maybe. But last night felt like the first honest thing that's happened to me in months. I know it was fake, but it didn't feel fake. And I think that's because you don't know how to be anyone other than who you are. Maya looked at Evan's earnest face and felt the same flutter of recognition she'd experienced in Ruth's kitchen. This was someone who understood what it meant to value quiet things, personal things, someone who saw her competence as a strength rather than a service. But Maya had learned the hard way that people could see her clearly and still decide she wasn't enough. If I said yes, she said slowly, what would you expect? Nothing. I'd expect nothing except whatever you wanted to give. Evan's honesty was startling. Maya, I'm not looking for someone to solve my problems or make my family happy or improve my image. I'm looking for someone who makes me want to be the person she thinks I am. The flutter in Maya's chest grew stronger. And you think I'm that person? I think you might be. But I don't know, because we've never had a conversation that wasn't about helping me with something. Evan smiled, and Maya realized it was the first completely unguarded expression she'd seen from him. I'd like to find out. Maya was quiet, thinking. Everything in her practical mind said this was dangerous. Evan was clearly wealthy in a way that she couldn't even estimate. He moved in circles she knew nothing about. Getting involved with him meant risking exactly the kind of heartbreak she'd spent 3 years learning to avoid. But everything in her heart said that Evan Hale was different, that his interest in her wasn't about what she could do for him, but about who she was when she thought no one important was watching. I have rules, she said finally. Relief flickered across Evan's face. Of course you do. If we do this, we take it slow. Real dates, public places, no overnight anything for at least a month. Agreed. No expensive gifts, no surprise trips, no trying to upgrade my life or fix problems I haven't asked you to fix. Make sense? And if your family asks, we tell them we're dating. No more pretending to be married, no more lies. If this is real, we do it honestly. Evan nodded. That's what I want too. Maya studied his face, looking for any sign that he was promising things he didn't mean or agreeing to terms he planned to renegotiate later. But all she saw was patience and something that looked like genuine interest in her as a person. One more thing, she said. Anything. I don't know how to be with someone like you. I don't know your world, your expectations, your version of normal. If this is going to work, you have to be patient with me figuring it out. Maya, Evan said softly, I don't want someone who knows my world. I want someone who can help me remember there are other worlds worth knowing. The sincerity in his voice made Maya's chest tight with something she was afraid to name. Okay, she said quietly. One date, Evan agreed. When? Maya thought about her schedule. I work until 3 today, and I have dog walking clients this afternoon. Dog walking? I walk dogs for people in the neighborhood. Mr. Alvarez's beagle, Maple, mostly. She's getting older, and he can't always manage the longer walks. Evan's expression was thoughtful. Would it be weird if I came with you? Not as a date exactly, just to spend time together doing something you normally do. The suggestion surprised Maya. Most men she'd known wanted to take her away from her regular life, not participate in it. You want to walk an old beagle around the neighborhood? I want to see what your life looks like when it's just your life. And I like dogs. Maya found herself smiling despite her nervousness. Mr. Alvarez would probably enjoy meeting you. He gets lonely since his wife died. It's a date, then. Walking Maple with Maya and Mr. Alvarez. That's not a very romantic first date. Good, Evan said seriously. Romance is easy. I want to know if we like spending regular time together. Maya looked at him for a long moment, taking in the honesty of his expression and the way he seemed genuinely interested in her answer. Okay, she said, but I'm warning you. Maple is not an energetic walk. More of a gentle stroll with frequent stops to sniff interesting things. Sounds perfect. They arranged to meet at 2:30 at the corner near Mr. Alvarez's building. Evan would bring dog treats, Maya would bring Maple, and they'd see what it felt like to spend time together without any agenda beyond enjoying each other's company. After Evan left, Maya returned to the coffee counter where Lila was pretending to organize already organized supplies. "So," Lila said without looking up, that seemed intense. "It was a conversation." The kind of conversation where people make plans?" Maya pulled a fresh bag of coffee beans from under the counter and began refilling the espresso machine's hopper. "Maybe." "Maya Brooks, are you about to start dating a customer?" "I don't know what I'm about to do," Maya admitted, "but I think I'm about to find out." The rest of Maya's morning shift passed in a blur of routine tasks and anxious second-guessing. By the time Lila took over at 1 o'clock, Maya had mentally rehearsed 17 different ways the afternoon could go wrong and 3 ways it might go right. "You're overthinking," Lila said as Maya gathered her things. "Just go walk a dog with a nice man and see what happens. What if he's not actually nice? What if last night was all an act? Then Maple will know. Dogs can sense character. Trust the beagle." Maya walked home to change clothes and try to calm her nerves. She found Zoe in their small living room, working on a logo design with her laptop balanced on her knees. "You're home early," Zoe observed without looking up from her screen. "I'm meeting someone." That got Zoe's attention. "Someone?" "The client from last night. He asked me to. We're going on a date." Zoe closed her laptop and gave Maya her full attention. "What kind of date?" "Dog walking." "That's either the most romantic thing I've ever heard or the weirdest." Maya sat down on the edge of their second-hand couch. "Zoe, what do you think about second chances? In general, or in relation to mysterious catering clients who ask my sister on dog-walking dates? In relation to the possibility that sometimes good things happen to people like us." Zoe was quiet for a moment, studying Maya's face. "I think you've been careful for 3 years, and that was smart. But I also think being careful forever isn't the same thing as being safe. What if I'm wrong about him? Then you'll figure it out and handle it, same as you always do." Zoe reached over and squeezed Maya's hand. "But Maya, what if you're right about him?" An hour later, Maya stood at the corner near Mr. Alvarez's building, holding Maple's leash and trying not to check her phone every 30 seconds. She'd changed into jeans and a comfortable sweater, tied her hair back in a ponytail, and deliberately chosen her most practical shoes. This wasn't a date where she needed to look impressive. This was a test to see if Evan Hale was the kind of person who could appreciate the unglamorous reality of her daily life. Maple sat patiently beside her, tail wagging gently at everyone who passed. The old beagle had arthritis in her back legs and cataracts that clouded her vision, but she still perked up with interest at every new person or interesting smell. "He better be nice to you," Maya told her quietly, "because if he's not, this is the shortest date in history." "I promise to be very nice to her." Maya turned to find Evan approaching from the opposite direction, carrying a small paper bag and wearing jeans that looked like he actually wore them regularly, not like costume pieces. "You're early," Maya said. "So are you." Evan crouched down to Maple's level, extending his hand for her to sniff. "And this must be the famous Maple." Maple's tail wagged harder as she investigated Evan's hand. After a moment, she bumped her head against his palm in obvious approval. "She likes you," Maya said, surprised by her relief. "Good thing, since I brought peace offerings." Evan opened the paper bag to reveal small, obviously expensive dog treats. The woman at the pet store said these were good for older dogs with sensitive stomachs. "You went to a pet store?" "I wanted to come prepared." Evan straightened, looking slightly embarrassed. "Is that weird?" Maya looked at him, this man who'd thought to research appropriate treats for a dog he'd never met, and felt her last wall of resistance begin to crumble. "No," she said softly. "That's thoughtful." They climbed the 3 flights to Mr. Alvarez's apartment, where Maple immediately began scratching at the door with excitement. Mr. Alvarez opened the door before Maya could knock, his weathered face breaking into a smile at the sight of his beloved dog. "Maya, mi querida, right on time as always." His eyes moved curiously to Evan. "And you brought a friend." "Mr. Alvarez, this is Evan." "Evan, Mr. Alvarez. Please, call me Luis." Mr. Alvarez shook Evan's hand with obvious approval. "Any friend of Maya's is welcome here. She's an angel, this one. Takes better care of Maple than I do sometimes." That's not true, Maya protested, but Luis waved her off. It is true. Since Maria died, Maple and we don't get out as much as we should. Maya makes sure Maple still gets to see the world. Evan looked between Luis and Maya with an expression she couldn't quite read. How long have you been walking, Maple? 2 years, Luis answered. Maya started coming by after she noticed Maple wasn't getting her usual walks. Didn't ask for money, didn't make a big thing of it. Just knocked on my door one day and said she had time to walk a dog if I had a dog who needed walking. Luis, Maya said, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. What? It's true. You young people, you don't like to take credit for good things. Luis handed Maya Maple's leash and a small bag of her regular treats. Evan, you take care of this one. She's special. As they walked down the stairs with Maple padding carefully beside them, Evan was unusually quiet. Everything okay? Maya asked. You didn't tell me you've been walking Maple for free. It's not completely free. Luis insists on paying me something, even though I told him he doesn't have to. But you started doing it for free. Luis was lonely, and Maple needed exercise. It wasn't a big deal. Evan stopped walking, causing Maya to turn back and look at him. Maya, you saw an elderly man and his aging dog who needed help, and you just helped, without being asked, without expecting anything in return. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, Evan said quietly. They wouldn't have. Most people would have felt bad for a few minutes and then found reasons why it wasn't their problem to solve. Maya didn't know how to respond to that. She'd helped Luis and Maple for the same reason she'd helped angry customers at the cafe, the same reason she'd agreed to help Evan with his family dinner, because she could and because it mattered. Come on, she said, tugging gently on Maple's leash. Let's show you the route. The walk through Maya's neighborhood was nothing like the romantic strolls Maya had seen in movies. Maple moved slowly, stopping frequently to investigate interesting smells or to rest her arthritic legs. She greeted other dogs with dignified friendliness and accepted pets from children with patient tolerance. But somehow, the ordinary nature of the walk made the conversation easier. Without the pressure of maintaining romantic momentum, Maya found herself talking naturally about her life, the regulars at the cafe, her plans to take a photography class, her worry about Mr. Alvarez spending too much time alone. Evan listened with the kind of attention Maya wasn't used to receiving. He asked follow-up questions, remembered details, and shared his own stories in return. He told her about learning to cook during college because he was tired of eating only takeout, about the technology consulting work he did for small non-profits because he liked solving problems that mattered, about the way he'd felt invisible in his own family until his father died and he realized visibility wasn't the same thing as connection. Can I ask you something personal? Maya said as they paused to let Maple sniff an interesting tree. Sure. What do you actually do for work? Technology consulting sounds like the kind of thing people say when they don't want to explain their real job. Evan smiled ruefully. You caught me. I develop software for financial management, mostly for small businesses and non-profits who can't afford the big corporate systems. That's not embarrassing. Why the vague answer? Because when people hear software development, they either assume I'm incredibly boring or incredibly wealthy. Sometimes both. Are you? Incredibly wealthy? The directness of her question seemed to surprise him. Yes, more than I need, less than people usually assume. How much is more than you need? Enough that I don't have to worry about rent or groceries or medical bills. Enough that I could quit working tomorrow if I wanted to. Evan's voice was careful. Does that bother you? Maya considered this as Maple investigated a particularly fascinating patch of sidewalk. It doesn't bother me that you have money, but it does make me nervous. Why? Because in my experience, people with money usually want to use it to control situations, to fix things, whether they need fixing or not, to make other people's decisions for them. And you think I'll try to control you? I think you'll try to take care of me, and you won't understand why that makes me uncomfortable. Evan was quiet for several steps. What would taking care of you look like to you? The version that would make you uncomfortable? The question was so thoughtful, so free of defensiveness, that Maya found herself answering honestly. Paying for things I can pay for myself, solving problems I haven't asked you to solve, deciding what's best for me without asking what I actually want. She paused, making me feel like I owe you something because you're generous. And what would taking care of you look like in a way that wouldn't make you uncomfortable? I don't know, Maya admitted. No one's ever asked me that before. They walked in comfortable silence for a few minutes, Maple setting the pace with her unhurried exploration of the neighborhood. Maya found herself stealing glances at Evan, trying to reconcile the man walking patiently beside an elderly dog with her preconceptions about wealthy men and their expectations. "Can I tell you what taking care of you looks like to me?" Evan asked eventually. "Okay." Remembering that you don't like expensive gifts and not buying them for you, asking how your day was and actually listening to the answer, showing up when you need someone to show up, but not assuming I know when that is. Maya felt something warm settle in her chest. That sounds more like partnership than caretaking. That's what I'm hoping for. They'd completed the full loop of Maple's usual route and were heading back toward Luis's building when Evan asked the question Maya had been dreading. "Maya, can I ask what happened with your ex? The one who made you nervous about people wanting to take care of you?" Maya's steps slowed. She'd known this conversation would come eventually, but she wasn't sure she was ready for it. "His name was Marcus," she said finally. "We dated for 2 years. He was controlling, but subtle about it." "What do you mean, subtle?" "He paid for everything," which seemed generous at first, but then he used that as justification for making decisions about where we went, what we did, even what I wore. Maya's voice was steady, but she could feel the old anger underneath. "When I tried to pay for my own things, he acted like I was rejecting his love. When I disagreed with his choices, he reminded me how much he did for me." "That's not love," Evan said quietly. "That's manipulation. I know that now. But at the time, it was confusing. Everyone said I was lucky to have someone who wanted to take such good care of me." "How did it end?" "I started working at the cafe and met Pete, who taught me that good bosses don't make their employees feel indebted for having jobs. That healthy relationships are built on respect, not gratitude." Maya looked down at Maple, who had stopped to rest on the sidewalk. "I realized I couldn't remember the last time Marcus had asked me what I wanted instead of telling me what he thought I should want. So you left." "So I left. Packed my things while he was at work and moved in with Zoe. He tried to convince me I was making a mistake, that I'd never find anyone who would care for me the way he did. But you did it anyway." "But I did it anyway." Maya looked at Evan. "And I've been careful ever since." "Careful is smart," Evan said. "But Maya, I hope you know that what Marcus did wasn't caring for you. It was owning you. I know that. Intellectually, I know that. But sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between someone who wants to take care of you and someone who wants to take you over. Then help me understand the difference. Tell me what real care would look like to you." Maya was quiet for a long moment, thinking, real care would be asking what I need instead of assuming you know. It would be supporting my choices, even when you don't understand them. It would be. She paused, searching for the right words. It would be seeing my independence as something to protect, not something to overcome. "That makes sense to me," Evan said simply. They'd reached Luis's building, and Maya realized with surprise that she didn't want the afternoon to end. The conversation with Evan had felt natural, honest, free of the careful boundaries she usually maintained around new people. "This was nice," she said as they climbed the stairs to return Maple to her owner. "It was. Would you be willing to do it again? A real date this time. Dinner somewhere you choose." Maya looked at him, this man who'd spent 2 hours walking slowly through her neighborhood, listening to her stories, asking thoughtful questions about her fears and boundaries, and made a decision. "Yes," she said. "I'd like that. Tomorrow night?" "Tomorrow's Saturday. I work until 6. 7 o'clock then? Somewhere in your neighborhood, somewhere you feel comfortable. There's a small Italian place on Hanover Street. Nothing fancy, but the food is good." "Perfect." Luis was delighted to see Maple return, happy and tired. He insisted that Maya and Evan stay for coffee, and for 20 minutes they sat in his small living room, listening to stories about his late wife Maria, and looking at photos of Maple as a young dog. "She was beautiful even as a puppy," Luis said proudly. "Smart, too. Maria always said Maple understood every word we said." "She's still beautiful," Evan said, and Maya saw Luis beam at the compliment. When they finally left Luis's apartment, Maya walked with Evan toward the main street, where he'd catch the train back to his part of the city. "Thank you for this afternoon," Evan said as they reached the corner, "for letting me see what your life looks like, for trusting me with the story about Marcus. Thank you for listening, and for being patient with Maple's pace." "Maya," Evan said, then paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. I want you to know that everything you told me today, everything you said you need from someone you're dating, I heard all of it. And I want to be the kind of person who can give you those things. I want that too, Maya said softly. For a moment, they stood looking at each other on the busy sidewalk, and Maya felt the same flutter of recognition she'd experienced at Ruth's dinner table. This was someone who understood what it meant to value quiet care over grand gestures, authentic connection over impressive displays. I'll see you tomorrow, Evan said. 7 o'clock at the Italian place. See you tomorrow. Maya watched him walk away until he disappeared into the crowd, then turned toward home with a feeling she couldn't quite name. It wasn't the nervous excitement she'd felt with Marcus in the beginning, all sparkle and uncertainty. This was something steadier, warmer, something that felt like the beginning of trust. At home, she found Zoe grading papers at their small kitchen table, red pen in hand, and a stack of student essays beside her laptop. How was the dog-walking date? Zoe asked without looking up. Good, really good. Maya poured herself a glass of water and sat down across from her sister. Zoe, do you think I'm ready to try this? Dating someone new? Do you think you're ready? I don't know. I liked him today. I liked the way he talked to Mr. Alvarez and how he was patient with Maple and how he listened when I told him about Marcus. Those are all good signs. But what if I'm wrong about him? What if he's just better at hiding the controlling stuff? Zoe set down her red pen and looked directly at Maya. Then you'll notice, and you'll handle it, same as you did before. But Maya, you can't let Marcus ruin every possibility for you forever. I'm not trying to let him ruin anything. I'm trying to be smart. Being smart doesn't mean assuming the worst about everyone. It means trusting your instincts and setting good boundaries. Zoe smiled. And, from what you've told me, your instincts about this guy seem pretty positive. That night, Maya lay in bed thinking about the afternoon, about the way Evan had crouched down to Maple's level, how he'd listened to Luis's stories with genuine interest, how he'd asked thoughtful questions about what she needed from a relationship instead of just promising to give her what he thought she wanted. Most of all, she thought about the moment when she'd told him about Marcus, and instead of getting defensive or trying to prove he was different, he'd simply listened and asked how he could do better. Maybe Zoe was right. Maybe being smart didn't mean assuming every man would try to control her. Maybe it meant recognizing the difference between someone who wanted to possess her and someone who wanted to know her. And maybe, just maybe, Evan Hale was worth the risk of finding out which kind of person he really was. The Italian restaurant on Hanover Street was exactly what Maya had hoped for. Small, warm, and unpretentious. Red checkered tablecloths, the scent of garlic and basil in the air, and the kind of comfortable buzz that came from families and couples enjoying good food together. Maya arrived 5 minutes early, partly from habit and partly from nerves. She'd chosen a simple black dress and her mother's earrings, wanting to look nice without seeming like she was trying too hard. Through the window, she could see other diners laughing over plates of pasta, and the normalcy of it helped calm her anxiety. Evan appeared at exactly 7 o'clock, scanning the restaurant until he spotted her at a corner table. He dressed carefully, 2 dark jeans, and a button-down shirt that looked expensive but not flashy. When he smiled at her across the room, Maya felt that now familiar flutter of warmth. I was worried I'd be late, he said, as he slid into the seat across from her. The train was delayed. You took the train? I thought driving might seem too. He paused, searching for the right word. Formal? Like I was trying to impress you instead of just having dinner with you. Maya felt some of her nervous tension ease. You took public transportation to our date because you didn't want to seem like you were showing off. Is that weird? It's thoughtful, Maya said, echoing his words from yesterday. Thank you. The waiter approached with menus and water glasses, and for a few minutes they settled into the comfortable ritual of choosing food and wine. Maya ordered the mushroom risotto, Evan chose the chicken marsala, and they agreed to share a bottle of Chianti that wasn't the most expensive option on the menu. So, Evan said once they'd placed their orders, tell me about your week, the parts I didn't see. Maya found herself relaxing as she talked about her regular customers at the cafe, the photography class she was considering, Zoe's latest freelance project, designing logos for a local bakery. Normal life, ordinary concerns, the kind of conversation she might have with any friend. But Evan listened with the same focused attention he'd shown yesterday, asking follow-up questions that showed he was genuinely interested in her answers. What kind of photography? he asked when she mentioned the class. Portraiture, I think. I've always been interested in faces, in the way people look when they think no one's watching them. Like at the cafe? Exactly like at the cafe. There's this regular Mrs. Chen who comes in every Tuesday for a cappuccino and a blueberry muffin. She always sits at the same table and reads the same gardening magazine. But sometimes I catch her looking out the window with this expression, like she's remembering something beautiful. Do you think she'd let you photograph her? Maya blinked. I never thought about asking. It seems too personal somehow. Maybe. Or maybe she'd be flattered that someone noticed her, that someone saw the beauty in her ordinary Tuesday morning. The arrival of their food created a natural pause in the conversation, but Maya found herself thinking about Evan's suggestion. She'd always assumed that photographing people required permission to intrude, but maybe the right kind of photography was about capturing what was already there, already beautiful. Your turn, she said as they started eating. Tell me about your week. Evan talked about his work with a small non-profit that provided financial literacy education in underserved communities. He'd been helping them streamline their client intake system, making it easier for people to access the services they needed. It's not glamorous, he said, but the organization serves about 300 families a year. If I can save each family an hour of paperwork, that's 300 hours returned to people who need that time for other things. That's not glamorous, Maya said. That's making people's lives better in a concrete way. You think so? I know so. Do you have any idea how frustrating it is to need help and then have to spend hours filling out forms to prove you deserve it? Evan's expression grew thoughtful. You sound like you speak from experience. Maya hesitated, then decided on honesty. After my mother died, I had to help her navigate insurance claims for her final medical bills. The system is designed to exhaust people, to make them give up before they get what they're entitled to. I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly stressful on top of grieving. It was. But it taught me that the difference between a system that works and a system that doesn't is usually someone who cares enough to make it simple. They talked through the rest of dinner with the same easy flow Maya had felt yesterday during their walk. Evan told her about his complicated relationship with his cousin Caleb, who seemed to think success required constant competition. Maya shared stories about her customers, the small daily dramas and kindnesses that made up her work life. It wasn't until they were sharing tiramisu that the conversation took a more serious turn. Maya, Evan said, setting down his spoon. Can I ask you something that might be too personal? You can ask. I might not answer. Fair enough. He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. Yesterday, when you told me about Marcus, you said everyone thought you were lucky to have someone who wanted to take such good care of you. Do you think your friends and family didn't see what was really happening? Or do you think they saw it and didn't want to interfere? The question was so direct, so thoughtful, that Maya took a moment to really consider her answer. I think they saw what Marcus wanted them to see, she said finally. He was very good at performing the role of the devoted boyfriend. Flowers, expensive dinners, constant attention. From the outside, it looked like love. But it didn't feel like love? Not toward the end. It felt like being managed. Maya met his eyes. Why do you ask? Because I want to understand the difference between caring for someone and controlling them. I want to make sure I never make you feel managed. The honesty in his voice made Maya's chest tight. Evan, the fact that you're asking that question already puts you in a different category than Marcus. But I want to do more than just not be Marcus. I want to be someone you feel safe with. Maya studied his face, looking for any sign that this was a performance, that he was saying what he thought she wanted to hear. But all she saw was genuine concern and something that looked like vulnerability. Then keep asking, she said softly. Keep checking in with me about how things feel. Don't assume you know what I need, ask me. I can do that. And don't try to fix my problems unless I specifically ask you to fix them. Sometimes I just want someone to listen. That makes sense. And if I say no to something, don't try to convince me to change my mind. Trust that I know what I want. Evan nodded seriously. Those all sound like basic respect to me. You'd be surprised how uncommon basic respect can be in relationships. They walked slowly back toward Maya's neighborhood after dinner, the evening warm enough for a leisurely stroll. Maya found herself stealing glances at Evan, still trying to reconcile her growing feelings with her hard-won caution. Can I ask you a personal question now? She said. Absolutely. What happened with your last relationship? Really happened, not just the official version. Evan was quiet for several steps, Sienna and I wanted different things. She wanted to be seen as part of a successful couple. I wanted to actually be part of a successful couple. What's the difference? She cared more about how our relationship looked than how it felt. She wanted to go to the right events, be photographed at the right places, have people know we were together. When I suggested we stay in and cook dinner, she acted like I was being antisocial. Maya nodded. She wanted to date your image, not you. Exactly. And when I tried to talk to her about it, she said I was being paranoid, that there was nothing wrong with enjoying being part of a successful couple. But you didn't feel successful? I felt like an accessory, like my role was to look good standing next to her and pay for the privilege. Evan's voice was careful, but Maya heard the hurt underneath. The last few months we were together, I started to feel like I was disappearing. Maya understood that feeling more than she wanted to admit. Is that why you've been so private since then? Why you dress down, keep your head down? Partly. But also because I realized I'd rather be alone than be with someone who doesn't actually like me. They'd reached Maya's building, and she found herself reluctant to end the evening. The conversation had felt natural, honest, free of the performance anxiety that usually plagued first dates. This was nice, she said, echoing her words from yesterday. It was. Maya, would you be willing to do this again? Maybe something less formal next time. What did you have in mind? There's a farmer's market tomorrow morning in the South End. We could walk around, try different foods, see what catches our interest. Maya smiled at the suggestion. A farmer's market was public, casual, exactly the kind of low-pressure date that would let them continue getting to know each other without any romantic expectations. I'd like that. What time? 10. We could get coffee and pastries from different vendors, make a whole morning of it. It's a date. They stood looking at each other on the sidewalk, and Maya felt the same steady warmth she'd experienced yesterday. Not the desperate excitement that had characterized her early relationship with Marcus, but something calmer and more sustainable, something that felt like the beginning of genuine affection. Maya, Evan said quietly, would it be okay if I kissed you goodnight? The fact that he asked, that he waited for her answer instead of just leaning in, made Maya's decision easy. Yes, she said. The kiss was gentle, unhurried, exactly right for a second date between two people who were taking their time getting to know each other. When they separated, Maya felt pleased rather than overwhelmed. I'll see you tomorrow, Evan said. See you tomorrow. Maya climbed the 3 flights to her apartment with a lightness in her step she hadn't felt in months. The evening had confirmed her growing sense that Evan was different from Marcus, different from the assumptions she'd learned to make about men who had more resources than she did. She found Zoe curled up on their couch with a book and a cup of tea, clearly waiting to hear about the date. Well, Zoe asked without preamble. Well, what? Don't be coy. How was dinner with Prince Charming? Maya settled into the chair across from her sister. His name is Evan, and it was good, really good. Define good. He listened to my stories about work like they were actually interesting. He asked thoughtful questions about what I need from a relationship. He took the train to dinner instead of driving because he didn't want to seem like he was showing off. Okay, those are all promising signs. What else? He wants to take things slow. Public dates, no pressure, getting to know each other as people before we figure out if we want to be more than friends. Zoe raised an eyebrow. That's very mature and healthy. I'm suspicious. Why are you suspicious of healthy? Because, in my experience, men who talk about taking things slow are usually either players who don't want commitment or control freaks who want you to prove yourself before they decide if you're worthy of their attention. Maya considered this. It was true that Marcus had also talked about taking things slow in the beginning, though his version of slow had involved a lot of expensive attention and gradually increasing expectations. I don't think Evan is either of those things, she said finally. What do you think he is? I think he's someone who's been hurt before and wants to be careful. Same as me. They talked for another hour, with Zoe asking detailed questions about every aspect of the evening. Her protective instincts were strong, but Maya could tell that even Zoe was cautiously optimistic about Evan. Just promise me you'll keep paying attention to how you feel, Zoe said as they turned off the living room lights. Not how you think you should feel, or how he wants you to feel, but how you actually feel. I promise. The next morning, Maya woke up looking forward to the farmer's market with an anticipation that felt entirely healthy. She chose comfortable clothes, jeans and a light sweater, and walked to the South End with a spring in her step. The market was bustling with weekend energy. Vendors sold everything from organic vegetables to artisanal bread to handmade soaps. Maya spotted Evan near the entrance, holding 2 cups of coffee and scanning the crowd for her. "Perfect timing," he said, offering her one of the cups. "I got here early and couldn't resist the smell from the coffee roaster's booth." "Thank you." Maya accepted the coffee gratefully, noting that he'd somehow remembered she preferred it with just a splash of milk. They wandered through the market together, sampling cheese from a local dairy, debating the merits of different apple varieties, watching a baker demonstrate how to braid challah bread. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by shared tastes and discoveries. "Try this," Maya said, offering Evan a bite of the most incredible honey she'd ever tasted. "That's amazing. What kind of flowers?" "Wildflower mix, apparently," the vendor said. "The bees have access to over 40 different types of plants." They bought a small jar of the honey and continued exploring, building an impromptu picnic of local specialties. When they found a quiet spot in the nearby park to eat their collection of treats, Maya realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this relaxed on a date. "This is perfect," she said, spreading their purchases on the bench between them. "It is. Maya, can I tell you something?" "Sure. I've been on a lot of first and second dates in the past year. Since Sienna and I broke up, I've tried to meet people, to put myself back out there, but every conversation felt like an interview, like we were both performing the roles of people who might want to date each other. And this doesn't feel like that. This feels like spending time with someone I genuinely like, someone I want to keep getting to know, regardless of whether it turns into something romantic." Maya felt a rush of warmth at his words. "I was just thinking the same thing, that this is the most comfortable I've felt on a date in, maybe ever. Good comfortable or settling comfortable? Good comfortable. Like I don't have to be anyone other than exactly who I am." They were interrupted by Maya's phone buzzing with a text. She glanced at it, intending to ignore it, but the message made her pause. "Hey Maya, it's Lila from work. Did you see the photo that's going around online? You might want to check." Maya's stomach dropped. "Evan, I think we might have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Instead of explaining, Maya opened her browser and searched for her own name. It took only a moment to find what Lila was referring to, a blog post titled, "Mystery Woman, Who is Billionaire Evan Hale's Secret Wife?" The photo was from Thursday night, clearly taken as they left Ruth's house. Maya was adjusting her coat while Evan stood close beside her, his hand hovering protectively near her back. To anyone who didn't know the context, it looked intimate, romantic, like a couple who were comfortable with each other. "Oh," Maya said quietly. Evan looked over her shoulder at the screen and swore softly. "Maya, I'm so sorry. I had no idea anyone was—" "Billionaire?" Maya interrupted, staring at the headline. "Evan, exactly how wealthy are you?" The color drained from Evan's face. It's complicated. Uncomplicated." Evan ran his hands through his hair, suddenly looking more like the nervous man who'd approached her at the cafe than the relaxed person who'd been sharing honey and conversation a moment ago. "I develop software, like I told you, but I created a financial management platform that got bought by a larger company 3 years ago. The sale was substantial." "How substantial?" "Maya, the exact number doesn't matter." "It does matter, because apparently it's substantial enough that people are taking pictures of us and posting them online with headlines about mystery women and secret wives." Maya scrolled through the brief article, which speculated about who she was and why Evan had kept his marriage secret. The comments were a mixture of curiosity and judgment, with several people already trying to identify her. "This is a problem," she said quietly. "I can fix this. I can have my lawyer send a cease and desist, or I can issue a statement clarifying." "No," Maya's voice was sharp. "No statements, no lawyers, no public anything. Maya, if we don't respond, people will keep speculating. They might dig deeper, try to find out who you are." "Evan," Maya closed her phone and looked directly at him. "Last night you asked me what would make me feel managed versus cared for. Right now, you're trying to fix a problem I haven't asked you to fix." He stopped talking, visibly forcing himself to listen. "I need to think about this," Maya continued. "About what it means that dating you comes with this kind of attention, about whether I can handle having my life scrutinized by strangers. Of course, whatever you need." But Maya could see the panic in his eyes, the fear that she was about to walk away from whatever was developing between them. And truthfully, part of her wanted to walk away. This kind of public attention was exactly what she'd been afraid of when she'd first hesitated to date someone with money. "I'm not breaking up with you," she said, seeing his relief, "but I need some time to process this, to figure out if I can be with someone whose private life isn't actually private." "How much time?" "A few days, maybe a week. I need to talk to Zoe, think about what this would mean for my life if we keep dating." Evan nodded, though Maya could see how much the pause cost him. "Whatever you need. But Maya, can I say one thing?" "Okay. I know this is scary. I know it's not what you signed up for when we started getting to know each other, but I also know that what's happening between us is real and good and worth protecting." Maya felt her chest tighten with conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to lean into Evan's certainty, to let him convince her that they could weather this together, but part of her remembered how Marcus had also been very convincing about what she should want. "I know it's real," she said softly. "That's what makes this so hard." They walked back to Maya's neighborhood in relative quiet, both lost in their own thoughts. At her building, Evan turned to face her with an expression that was vulnerable and careful at the same time. "Maya, I meant what I said about respecting your boundaries. If you need space, I'll give you space. But I hope you'll let me know when you're ready to talk." "I will. And if you decide this is too much, if you decide you don't want to deal with the complications that come with dating me, I'll understand. I won't like it, but I'll understand." Maya looked at him, this man who'd spent 2 perfect days showing her what respectful attention felt like, who was now offering to step back because she needed time to think, and felt her heart break a little. "Evan, yeah? This isn't about you. It's not about anything you did wrong or any way you disappointed me. It's about me figuring out if I'm strong enough for this." "You are," he said simply, "but you should decide that for yourself." After Evan left, Maya climbed the stairs to her apartment feeling like the world had shifted around her. 2 hours ago, she'd been falling for someone who made her feel seen and valued. Now she was facing the reality that falling for Evan Hale meant accepting a level of public attention she'd never wanted or prepared for. Zoe took one look at her face and immediately closed her laptop. "What happened?" Maya showed her sister the blog post and watched Zoe's expression cycle through surprise, concern, and anger. "Billionaire?" Zoe said finally. "Maya, exactly who have you been dating?" "Someone who apparently forgot to mention a few significant details about his financial situation, and someone who comes with paparazzi attention." Maya sank onto their couch, feeling suddenly exhausted. "I don't know if I can do this, Zoe. I don't know if I want strangers taking pictures of me and speculating about my relationship online." "That's understandable. This is a lot to process. But what if I'm just being scared? What if I'm letting fear of something that might happen ruin something good that's happening right now?" Zoe sat down beside her sister. "Maya, do you like him? The real him, not the version he presented before you knew about the money." "I really do. These past 2 days, spending time with him has felt easy, natural, like we understand each other." "And do you trust him?" Maya thought about Evan's reaction to the blog post, the way he'd immediately tried to fix the situation without asking what she wanted first. But she also thought about the way he'd stopped and listened when she'd pointed that out, the way he'd offered her space instead of trying to convince her to stay. "I think I do, or I think I could, given time." "Then maybe the question isn't whether you can handle dating someone famous. Maybe the question is whether you can handle dating someone famous while maintaining your own boundaries and sense of self." "What do you mean?" "I mean, if you decide to pursue this with Evan, you get to set the terms. You get to decide how much of your life you share publicly, how you want to handle media attention, what kind of relationship you want to have, regardless of what other people expect." Maya felt something loosen in her chest. "I don't have to become someone else just because I'm dating someone with money." "Exactly. You get to stay Maya Brooks, barista and dog walker, and sister. Dating Evan Hale doesn't have to change who you are unless you want it to." That evening, Maya called in sick to work for the first time in months and spent the day walking through her neighborhood, thinking. She visited Luis and Maple, who seemed delighted to see her outside of their usual schedule. She stopped by the photography studio where the portraiture classes were held and picked up a registration form. She sat in the small cafe where she'd had her first job interview with Pete and remembered what it felt like to be proud of building a life on her own terms. By the time she went to bed, Maya had made her decision. But she wanted to sleep on it, to make sure it still felt right in the morning. The next day, she texted Evan, Can we talk? Tonight after my shift? His response was immediate. Of course. Where? My place. 7 p.m. Maya spent her work shift fielding curious questions from customers who'd somehow connected her to the blog post. Pete ran interference when he could, but Maya could feel the weight of attention in a way she'd never experienced before. You okay? Lila asked during a quiet moment. I think so. Just adjusting to some unexpected attention. The guy seems nice, from what I've seen, and you've been happier the past few days than I've seen you in months. You think so? I know so. You've been humming while you work, Maya. You never hum. At 7 o'clock exactly, Evan knocked on Maya's door. She'd asked Zoe to give them privacy, and her sister had cheerfully decamped to the library with her laptop and a promise to stay away until Maya texted. Hi, Evan said quietly. Hi, come in. Maya had made tea and set out cookies from the bakery down the street, trying to create an atmosphere that was welcoming but not romantic. They needed to have a serious conversation, and she wanted them both to be clear-headed. Evan, she said once they were settled on her couch, I've spent the last few days thinking about what it would mean to date you, really date you, knowing what I know now. And I've decided that I want to try. But I have conditions. Relief flickered across Evan's face, but he kept his expression careful. What kind of conditions? First, no more surprises about your financial situation. If there are other things I should know about your wealth, your family, your business, whatever, I want to know them now. Fair enough. What do you want to know? Maya had prepared a list. How much money do you actually have? Ballpark. Enough to never work again if I chose not to. Enough to buy a house without a mortgage, to travel wherever I want, to donate significant amounts to causes I care about. Are there other family complications I should know about? Ex-girlfriends who might cause problems? Business partners who might have opinions about your personal life? Sienna might be an issue. She didn't take our breakup well, and she has opinions about my dating choices. My cousin Caleb will probably have something to say about anyone I'm serious about. But Maya, my family complications are nothing compared to what most people deal with. What about the media attention? Is this going to be a regular thing? Evan was quiet for a moment. I don't know. I've tried to stay out of the public eye, but if we keep dating, if people figure out who you are, it might get more intense before it gets better. Maya nodded. She'd expected as much. Okay, here's my second condition. I get to control how much of our relationship is public. I decide what I share, when I share it, and with whom. You don't make statements about us without talking to me first. Absolutely. Third, we take this slow, really slow. I don't care how much money you have or how sure you are about us. I need time to trust this, to trust you, to figure out how to be with someone when the whole world might be watching. How slow is slow? I don't know yet. But I'll tell you when I'm ready for more, and you have to trust that I mean it when I say I'm not ready. I can do that. Maya took a breath, preparing for the hardest part. And fourth, if this doesn't work out, if I decide I can't handle the attention, or if we're just not right for each other, you have to let me go. No trying to convince me I'm wrong. No using your resources to fix problems I haven't asked you to fix. No making it harder for me to leave if that's what I need to do. Evan's expression grew serious. Maya, are you planning to leave? I'm planning to protect my ability to leave if I need to, because the only way I can try this with you is if I know I can still choose myself if it comes to that. That's fair and smart. Evan reached across the couch and took her hand, carefully, waiting to see if she'd pull away. Maya, I want you to feel safe with me. I want you to trust me. And if that means giving you space to figure out your own feelings without pressure from me, then that's what I'll do. Maya felt something settle in her chest, something that felt like the beginning of real trust. Okay, she said, then let's try this. Really? Really. But Evan, I meant what I said about going slow. I'm not going to rush into anything just because you're wonderful and the past few days have been perfect. I don't want you to rush. I want you to be sure. Good. Because I'm going to need time to be sure. They spent the rest of the evening talking through the practical implications of dating under public scrutiny. Evan shared stories about previous media attention, strategies for maintaining privacy, the importance of having a few trusted friends who could provide perspective when the outside noise got loud. Maya told him about her fears, not just of media attention, but of losing herself in a relationship with someone whose resources and social position were so different from her own. "I've worked hard to build a life I'm proud of," she said. "I don't want to become someone who's only interesting because of who I'm dating." "You could never be only interesting because of me," Evan said seriously. "You're interesting because you make angry customers feel heard, because you volunteer to walk an elderly man's dog, because you see beauty in ordinary Tuesday mornings and want to photograph it. Promise me you'll remind me of that if I start to forget." "I promise." When Evan left that night, Maya felt cautiously optimistic about what they were building together. It wouldn't be simple dating someone with money, and public attention never was. But it felt honest, built on genuine care and respect for each other's boundaries. And for the first time since the blog post had appeared, Maya felt like maybe she could handle being Maya Brooks, who happened to be dating Evan Hale, instead of becoming some other version of herself that she didn't recognize. That, she thought, might be worth the risk of a little unwanted attention. 3 weeks into their careful courtship, Maya was beginning to understand what it meant to be happy in a way that felt sustainable. She and Evan had settled into a routine of simple dates, farmers market visits, dog walks with Maple, quiet dinners at neighborhood restaurants where they could talk without performing for anyone else. The media attention had died down after the initial blog post, helped by Evan's refusal to comment and Maya's decision to continue her normal life without acknowledging the speculation. She still got the occasional curious look from customers at the cafe, but for the most part, their relationship had returned to being their own business, which was why the call from Ruth came as such a surprise. "Maya, dear, I was hoping we could have lunch this week." Ruth's warm voice came through Maya's phone on a Tuesday morning. "Just the two of us. I have so many questions about how you and Evan are really doing." Maya's stomach tightened. She and Evan had agreed to tell his family the truth about their fake marriage and real dating, but they'd been putting off the conversation, enjoying the privacy of figuring things out together first. "Mrs. Hale, Ruth, I'd love to have lunch with you, but there's something Evan and I should probably explain first." "Oh, honey, I know you two aren't actually married." Maya nearly dropped her phone. "You know, I suspected from the first dinner. Evan's never been a good liar, and you both looked terrified every time someone mentioned your wedding." Ruth's voice was amused rather than angry. "What I want to know is whether you're really dating now, because my son has been happier these past few weeks than I've seen him in years." Maya felt a rush of relief and affection for Evan's perceptive mother. "We are really dating. And Ruth, I owe you an apology for lying to you, even if it was just by omission." "Nonsense. You were helping my stubborn son solve a problem, and now you're both solving it properly. I'd say that worked out exactly as it should have." They arranged to meet for lunch on Thursday at a small cafe near Ruth's house. Maya spent the intervening days alternately nervous about the conversation and touched by Ruth's easy acceptance of the situation. "She's not mad?" Evan asked when Maya told him about the lunch invitation. "She says she suspected all along, and she wants to know if we're really dating because you've been happier lately." "I have been happier," Evan said simply. "Have you noticed?" Maya had noticed. The careful tension that had characterized Evan when she first met him had been gradually relaxing. He smiled more easily, laughed at her stories about difficult customers, seemed more comfortable in his own skin. "I've been happier too," Maya admitted. They were sitting on Maya's tiny fire escape, sharing takeout Chinese food and watching the neighborhood's evening routine unfold below them. Mrs. Patel was watering her window boxes, the teenagers from downstairs were playing music too loud, and Mr. Kim was teaching his son how to stack inventory in the store window. "Maya," Evan said carefully, "Ruth wants to have us both over for dinner again, a real dinner this time, where we can be ourselves. Would you be comfortable with that?" Maya thought about it. The first dinner had been performance, but this one would be genuine, a chance for Ruth to get to know the real Maya, and for Maya to see how she fit into Evan's family life when she didn't have a role to play. "I think so." "When? This weekend? Saturday evening? Okay. But Evan, what if she doesn't like the real me as much as she liked the version I was playing?" "Impossible," Evan said with such certainty that Maya felt her anxiety ease slightly. "The version you were playing was still you, Maya. You just didn't have to worry about consequences." On Thursday, Maya met Ruth at a cafe that specialized in homemade soups and fresh bread. Ruth was already seated when Maya arrived, looking elegant but approachable in a navy cardigan and simple jewelry. "Maya, you look wonderful," Ruth said, standing to hug her. "I'm so glad we could do this. Thank you for inviting me. And Ruth, I really am sorry about the deception." Ruth waved dismissively as they settled into their seats. Honey, I spent 40 years married to Evan's father. I know the difference between a man who's pretending to be happy and a man who actually is. That night at dinner, Evan was pretending. These past few weeks, he's been actually happy. How can you tell? He calls me, not because he thinks he should, but because he wants to share something that happened during his day. He mentions plans for the weekend that don't involve work, and last Sunday, he brought me flowers for no reason other than he was thinking about me. Maya felt warmth spread through her chest. He brings you flowers? Every few weeks, ever since his father died, usually accompanied by a slightly guilty expression and an apology for not calling enough. Ruth smiled. But last Sunday, he looked like a man who was bringing flowers because he was happy and wanted to share that happiness with someone he loved. They ordered soup and sandwiches, and Ruth asked gentle questions about Maya's life, her work at the cafe, her relationship with Zoe, her plans for the photography class she'd finally registered for. Evan mentioned you're taking portraits, Ruth said. What draws you to that? I think I'm interested in the way people look when they feel truly seen, not performing for anyone, just being themselves in a moment when they feel valued. That's beautiful, and very much what I see happening between you and my son. Maya blushed. It's still new. We're taking things slowly. Good. The best relationships are built gradually, with attention to the foundation. Ruth paused, seeming to gather her thoughts. Maya, can I tell you something personal? Of course. When Evan was with Sienna, I worried constantly. Not because she wasn't lovely, she was, but because I could see him changing to fit what he thought she wanted. He became quieter, more careful, less like himself. And now? Now he talks about you the way his father talked about me, like you're someone who makes him more himself, not less. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. That's how he makes me feel too, like I don't have to be anyone other than exactly who I am. Then you understand what you have together. And Maya, I hope you know that you're welcome in our family regardless of how things develop between you and Evan. You're a lovely young woman, and I've enjoyed getting to know you. On Saturday evening, Maya dressed carefully for dinner with Ruth and Evan. Not the navy dress from their fake first dinner, but a simple green sweater and dark jeans that made her feel comfortable and confident. Evan picked her up at 6:30, arriving with flowers for his mother and an expression that seemed equal parts nervous and excited. Ready for this? He asked as they walked toward Ruth's house. I think so. Are you? I'm ready for my family to know the real you. I think they're going to love you. Ruth's house felt different this time, warmer, more welcoming, without the undercurrent of performance that had characterized their first visit. Ruth hugged them both at the door and immediately put Maya to work helping in the kitchen, treating her like family rather than a guest. I made the chicken with lemon again, Ruth said, handing Maya a wooden spoon to taste the sauce. But this time I added fresh thyme. What do you think? It's incredible. I can see why that's one of your signature dishes. It was my mother-in-law's recipe originally. She taught me that the secret to good cooking is adjusting the recipe until it tastes like love. Maya thought about Ruth's mother's recipe book, still sitting on her nightstand at home, and felt a rush of gratitude for the way this family shared their traditions so generously. Caleb arrived just as they were sitting down to eat, and Maya braced herself for another round of subtle interrogation. But this time, his questions seemed genuinely curious, rather than suspicious. So Maya, Evan says you're taking a photography class. What kind of photography interests you? Portraiture, mostly. I'm interested in capturing people in moments when they feel genuinely themselves. That's harder than it sounds, I imagine. Getting people to relax enough to be genuine. It is. But I think if you can make someone feel seen and valued, they naturally become more themselves. Caleb nodded thoughtfully. That's a useful skill in any context, building trust quickly. The conversation flowed easily throughout dinner. Maya found herself relaxing into the rhythm of family discussion. Ruth's stories about her garden, Caleb's complaints about his dating life, Evan's description of his latest project, helping a small non-profit streamline their operations. Maya, Ruth said as they were clearing plates, Evan mentioned you walk dogs in your neighborhood. How did you get started with that? Maya told the story of Luis and Maple, how she'd noticed they weren't getting their usual walks and had simply started helping. As she talked, she was aware of Evan watching her with quiet pride and of Ruth and Caleb listening with genuine interest. That's exactly the kind of thing our family does, Ruth said when Maya finished. seeing a need and filling it without making a big production of it. Our family? Maya asked, touched by the inclusion. Well, you're dating my son with serious intentions, aren't you? That makes you family as far as I'm concerned. After dinner, Ruth insisted on showing Maya family photo albums while Evan and Caleb cleaned up in the kitchen. The photos told the story of a family that valued time together over impressive achievements, camping trips, birthday parties, quiet moments in the backyard. This was Evan at 12, Ruth said, pointing to a photo of a serious boy building something elaborate with blocks. Always focused, always thinking 3 steps ahead. His father used to worry he was too serious for his own good. What changed? You did. Ruth looked directly at Maya. I've seen more spontaneous joy from my son in the past month than I saw in the 2 years he was with Sienna. Maya felt her chest tighten with emotion. Ruth, what if I hurt him? What if I'm not ready for something as serious as he seems to want? Then you'll figure it out together, like adults who care about each other. Maya, honey, love isn't about being certain. It's about choosing to build something good with someone you trust, even when the future is uncertain. When Evan and Caleb returned from the kitchen, Maya found herself looking at Evan with new eyes. This was a man whose family had watched him change to fit someone else's expectations, and who now saw him returning to himself because of her influence. That felt like a responsibility and a gift in equal measure. We should probably head home, Evan said around 9 o'clock. Early day tomorrow. Ruth hugged them both goodbye, but this time there was nothing performative about it. Maya felt genuinely welcomed, genuinely valued, by people who were beginning to matter to her. Thank you for dinner, Maya said. For everything. Thank you for making my son happy, Ruth replied, and for letting us get to know the real you. On the walk back to Maya's apartment, Evan was quieter than usual. Finally, Maya asked what he was thinking about how right it felt, having you there with my family, how easy it was, watching you fit into conversations and relationships that matter to me. It felt right to me too, Maya admitted. Maya, I know we're taking things slow, and I respect that, but I want you to know that tonight confirmed something for me. What? That I want to build a life with you, not someday, not if things work out perfectly, but actually, I want to plan weekends together and argue about whose turn it is to do dishes and have inside jokes that no one else understands. Maya stopped walking, feeling her heart race with something that wasn't quite fear but wasn't quite excitement either. Evan, that's a big thing to say, after 3 weeks of dating. I know, and I'm not asking you to say it back or to make any decisions about the future right now. I just want you to know that this isn't casual for me. What we're building together isn't an experiment or a distraction. It's the most real thing in my life. Maya looked at him, this man who'd somehow become essential to her happiness in just a few weeks, who made her laugh and challenged her thinking and respected her boundaries, even when they frustrated him. It's not casual for me either, she said quietly. But Evan, the idea of building a life together is terrifying to me. Why? Because I've never done it successfully. Because I'm still learning how to be with someone without losing myself. Because I don't know how to be part of a we while still being a complete me. Evan nodded seriously. Then we'll figure it out together. Step by step, boundary by boundary, conversation by conversation. What if I need more time than you want to give me? Then I'll wait. Maya, I'd rather wait for you than settle for someone else. They had reached Maya's building, and she found herself reluctant to end the conversation, to go upstairs and process everything she was feeling alone. Do you want to come up for tea? She asked. Zoe's spending the night at her friend Sarah's place. Are you sure? I'm sure. But Evan, just tea. I meant what I said about taking things slowly. Just tea, he agreed. Maya's apartment felt different with Evan in it at night, more intimate, more like a glimpse of what domestic life together might be like. They settled on the couch with chamomile tea and the comfortable silence that had become familiar between them. Evan, Maya said, eventually, can I ask you something that might be difficult to answer? Always. When you think about the life you want to build with me, what does it look like? Evan was quiet for a long moment, clearly choosing his words carefully. It looks like this. Quiet evenings, talking about our days. It looks like Sunday mornings at the farmer's market and Wednesday night dinners with my mother. It looks like you having your own work and interests that matter to you, and me having mine, and both of us choosing to share the best parts of our days with each other. What about the practical things? Where we'd live, how we'd handle your money, what we'd do about the media attention. We'd figure those things out based on what makes us both comfortable. Maya, I don't have a blueprint for how our life should look. I just know I want to build it with you. Maya felt something shift inside her, something that felt like the beginning of real trust in the possibility of a shared future. I want that too, she said softly. But I need more time to believe I can have it without losing myself in the process. How much more time? I don't know. But Evan, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that if I say I need to slow down, or take a step back, or think about something for a while, you won't interpret that as rejection. Promise me you'll trust that I'm trying to figure out how to be with you in a way that's healthy for both of us. I promise. Maya looked at him, sitting in her living room with his teacup balanced on his knee, looking like someone who belonged in her life, and made a decision. I love you, she said. Evan's face went very still. Maya, I'm not saying it because I think you need to hear it, or because I want you to say it back. I'm saying it because it's true, and because I think you should know. I love you too, Evan said quietly. I've been in love with you since the night you defended my character to Caleb without even knowing me well enough to be sure you were right. You love me because I took a risk on believing you were a good person. I love you because you saw something worth defending, and you spoke up for it. Because you value integrity over image, presence over performance. Because you make me want to be the person you think I am. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. Evan, what if I disappoint you? What if I'm not as brave or as good as you think I am? Then I'll love you anyway. Maya, I'm not in love with some perfect version of you. I'm in love with the person who gets nervous about family dinners and takes extra time to make sure angry customers feel heard and worries about whether she's strong enough for the life she wants. Maya set down her teacup and moved closer to Evan on the couch. Is it okay if I kiss you? Really kiss you, not just a goodnight kiss. Please. The kiss was different from their careful goodnight kisses, deeper, more honest about the feelings they'd been building toward. When they separated, Maya felt breathless and certain and terrified all at the same time. I want to try, she said, building a life together. But Evan, I need to do it my way, at my pace, with room to change my mind if I get scared, whatever you need. And I need to keep being myself, keep my job, my apartment with Zoe, my regular life. I can't jump into being someone's girlfriend so completely that I forget who I am when I'm alone. I don't want you to forget who you are. I fell in love with who you are. Maya looked at him, this man, who'd somehow become essential to her happiness while respecting her need to remain essentially herself, and felt something settle into place. Okay, she said. Let's try building something together. Really, really. But Evan, we do it honestly. No more pretending to be anything we're not. No more protecting each other from truths we think might be difficult to hear. Agreed. And we do it gradually. I don't want to wake up 6 months from now and realize I've become someone I don't recognize because I was so focused on making us work that I forgot to pay attention to what I actually wanted. That's smart. Maya, what do you want our first step to be? Maya thought about it. I want to meet your friends, not as someone you're casually dating, but as someone you're serious about. I want to see how you are with people who've known you for years. I'd love that. What else? I want you to spend more time here, in my neighborhood, doing normal things with me. I want to see if you actually like my life, or if you just like the idea of it. And I want you to see where I live, how I spend my time when I'm not with you. I want you to know all of me, not just the version that shows up for dates. Maya felt a flutter of nervousness and excitement. That feels like a big step. It is a big step. But Maya, I think we're ready for big steps, don't you? Maya looked around her small living room, at the life she'd built carefully and deliberately over the past 3 years. At the photos of her and Zoe, the books she'd collected, the small signs of a woman who knew her own mind and valued her own choices. Then she looked at Evan, who was watching her with patience and hope and love that didn't ask her to be anyone other than exactly who she was. Yeah, she said softly. I think we're ready. 6 months later, Maya stood in the kitchen of Evan's brownstone, teaching Ruth how to make her mother's cornbread from the notes in Ruth's recipe book. It was a Wednesday evening, and what had started as weekly dinners with Ruth had evolved into a tradition that anchored all their weeks. The secret is not over-mixing the batter, Maya said, watching Ruth combine the ingredients. My mother always said cornbread should be tender, not tough. Your mother was wise, Ruth replied. This smells just like the cornbread my grandmother used to make. Through the kitchen window, Maya could see Evan and Zoe in the small backyard, attempting to assemble a new grill while Maple supervised from her bed in the shade. Zoe had been skeptical of Evan at first, but 6 months of watching him respect Maya's boundaries and support her goals had worn down her defenses. "Maya," Ruth said, lowering her voice slightly, "can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Are you happy? Really happy? Not just content or satisfied, but actually happy?" Maya considered the question as she checked the cornbread in the oven. 6 months ago, she would have been suspicious of happiness, worried that it was too good to last, or that she was forgetting to protect herself properly. Now, watching Evan laugh at something Zoe had said, while Maple wagged her tail in approval, Maya realized that happiness didn't feel dangerous anymore. It felt earned. "I am," she said simply. "Ruth, I'm really happy." "Good. Because my son is happier than I've ever seen him, and I think you two are building something beautiful together." "We are. It's different than I thought it would be, slower in some ways, faster in others, but it feels right. The best things usually do, once you stop fighting them." That evening, as Maya and Evan walked Maple around the neighborhood that had become theirs together, Maya reflected on how much had changed since that first morning, when Evan had approached her at the cafe with his desperate request for help. "Penny for your thoughts," Evan said, adjusting his pace to match Maple's leisurely exploration. "Just thinking about how different everything is now. 6 months ago, I was so careful about who I let into my life. Now I can't imagine my life without you in it. Do you miss it? Being careful?" Maya thought about it honestly. Sometimes, there was something simple about knowing exactly what I wanted and being sure I could get it on my own. "But Evan, I wouldn't trade what we have for that simplicity." "Good, because I'm about to complicate things even more." Maya looked at him with mock alarm. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Evan said, stopping in front of the small park where they'd shared honey and conversation on their second date, "I have something I want to ask you." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box that made Maya's heart skip several beats. "Evan." "Maya Brooks," he said, dropping to one knee right there on the sidewalk while Maple sat patiently beside them. "I love your independence, your kindness, your ability to see the best in people without losing sight of reality. I love the way you make me want to be better while accepting me exactly as I am." Maya felt tears start to run down her cheeks. "I love the life we've built together, slow and honest and real. And I love you, more than I knew it was possible to love someone." Evan opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" Maya looked down at him, this man, who had somehow become her best friend and her biggest supporter, and the person she most wanted to share both ordinary Tuesday mornings and special occasions with. "Yes," she said through her tears. "Yes, of course. Yes." As Evan slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her, Maya was aware of a small crowd of their neighbors gathering to watch and cheer. "Mrs. Patel applauded from her front steps. Luis gave them a thumbs up from his window, and the teenagers from down the street whooped with joy. "We're getting married," Maya said wonderfully, looking at the ring on her finger. "We're getting married," Evan agreed. "Maya, how do you feel about a small wedding? Just family and close friends?" "I feel like that sounds perfect." 3 months later, Maya walked down the aisle of the small chapel where Evan's parents had been married, wearing a simple white dress and carrying wildflowers from Ruth's garden. Pete walked her down the aisle since her father had chosen not to be part of their celebration, and Maya found she didn't mind at all. Pete had been more of a father to her than her biological father had ever been. Zoe served as her maid of honor. Ruth beamed from the front row, and Caleb surprised everyone by crying during Evan's vows. Luis sat in the third row with Maple at his feet, both of them wearing small boutonnieres that made Maya smile every time she caught sight of them. But it was Evan's face that held Maya's attention as she walked toward him, open and happy and full of love for the woman she'd learned to become while building a life with him. Their vows were simple and honest, promises to continue choosing each other daily, to respect each other's growth, to build a partnership based on trust rather than need. "I promise to love your independence as much as I love your willingness to share your life with me," Evan said. "I promise to support your dreams even when they take you away from me, and to celebrate your successes as my own. I promise to trust you with my heart while keeping my sense of self," Maya replied. "I promise to build a life with you that makes us both more ourselves, not less." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, and Evan kissed Maya in front of everyone who mattered to them, Maya felt a deep sense of rightness settle into her bones. This was what love was supposed to feel like, not desperate or demanding or controlling, but steady and generous and real. At the reception in Ruth's backyard, Maya danced with her new husband to a song they'd chosen together, surrounded by the friends and family who had watched them fall in love gradually and honestly. "Mrs. Hale," Evan whispered in her ear as they swayed together, "how does it feel to be married?" "It feels like the most natural thing in the world," Maya whispered back. "How does it feel to be married to someone who's going to keep her own name and her own apartment for the first year while we figure out what living together actually looks like?" "It feels like I married exactly the right person," Evan said, spinning her gently. "Someone who knows that the best partnerships are built one careful decision at a time." Later that evening, as they cleaned up paper plates and leftover cake while their guests gradually headed home, Maya found herself standing in Ruth's kitchen with her new mother-in-law, washing dishes and talking about the future. "I'm so proud of you both," Ruth said, handing Maya a soapy plate to rinse. "You've built something real together, something that will last." "It feels like it will last," Maya agreed. "Ruth, thank you for welcoming me into your family, for seeing who I really was even when I was pretending to be someone else." "Honey, you were never pretending to be someone else. You were just afraid to believe you could have what you wanted. And now look at you, married to a man who adores you, surrounded by people who love you, confident in who you are and what you're worth." Maya looked around the kitchen where she'd first felt accepted by Evan's family, then out the window to where Evan was helping Louise load Maple into a cab for the ride home. "I never thought I'd have this," she said softly. "A family that chose me, a husband who sees my strength as something to celebrate instead of something to manage, a life that feels like mine even when it's shared with someone else. Well, you do have it now. And Maya, you deserve all of it." That night, Maya and Evan returned to her apartment, their apartment now, though they'd agreed to take their time combining households, and sat on their fire escape with cups of tea, still wearing their wedding clothes. "So," Evan said, "we're married." "We're married," Maya agreed. "How do you think we did?" "I think we did exactly what we set out to do. We built something real and honest and good." Evan reached over and took her hand, turning the new ring on her finger. "Maya, are you ready for whatever comes next?" Maya looked out over their neighborhood, at the familiar sights and sounds of the life she'd built for herself and now shared with the person she loved most. "I'm ready," she said. "But Evan, let's promise each other that we'll keep taking it one day at a time. Keep checking in with each other about how we're feeling. Keep making sure we're both choosing this life instead of just falling into it." "I promise," Evan said. "Maya, yeah, I love you. Not just the version of you that fits perfectly into my life, but all of you. The version that needs time to trust, that values independence, that makes me earn her love instead of just expecting it." "I love you too," Maya said. "All of you, even the parts that make me nervous sometimes." As they sat together in comfortable silence, watching their neighborhood settle into evening, Maya felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them here. It hadn't been simple or straightforward, the best things never were, but it had been honest and careful, and built on a foundation of genuine respect and affection. Most importantly, it had been chosen daily by two people who were committed to growing together without losing themselves in the process. And that, Maya thought as Evan squeezed her hand gently, was exactly what love was supposed to feel like. 3 years later, Maya opened her own photography studio in the neighborhood where she and Evan had built their life together. The walls were covered with portraits of their community. Mrs. Patel in her garden, Louise and Maple on their favorite walking route, the teenagers from down the street at their high school graduation, Pete behind the counter at Bean and Harbor Cafe. Evan surprised her on opening day with a portrait he'd commissioned secretly, Maya herself, captured during one of their Sunday morning farmers market visits, laughing at something he'd said while holding a bouquet of wildflowers. She looked happy and confident and completely herself. "This is how I see you," he said as they hung the portrait in her new studio. "This is who you've always been, even when you were afraid to believe it." Maya looked at the portrait, then at her husband, then at the life they'd built together, one careful, honest decision at a time. "I love you, Evan Hale." "I love you too, Maya Brooks Hale." And as the first customers began arriving for her studio's opening reception, Maya felt a deep sense of rightness about the path that had led her here. From a desperate request for help to a partnership built on trust, from a woman afraid to risk her independence to someone confident in her ability to share her life without losing herself. It had been worth every moment of uncertainty, every difficult conversation, every careful boundary they'd established along the way. Because this life they'd built together, this love they'd chosen daily for 3 years, this was exactly what happiness was supposed to feel like.